Günaydın herkese, yeniden merhaba. Ben Orkun Yazgan. Çevre TV ekranlarına bir kez daha hoş geldiniz. Çevre gününe başlıyoruz. Çevre gününün ikinci bölümünde Dünya Su Günü'nü konuşacağız ve çok özel, çok değerli bir konuğumuz olacak. Ankara'ya gideceğiz az sonra. İsrail'in Ankara Maslahat Güzarı IRIT LILLIAN bizimle birlikte olacak. Arkadaşlarımız teknik hazırlıkları sürdürürken bugün Dünya Su Günü ve İsrail özellikle su konusunda teknoloji geliştirme, araştırma konusunda öncü ülkelerden bir tanesi. Çok ciddi teknolojiler kullanılıyor. Suyun arıtılması, deniz suyunun tuzdan arındırılması ve yine suyun temizlenmesi gibi birçok proje ön sıralarda ve dünyada da bu anlamda önemli işler yapan bir ülke. Tüm bu projeleri konuşacağız az sonra Büyükelçi Lillian'la. Önce Dünya Su Günü'ne ilişkin bir videomuz var. Ona bakalım, ardından devam edelim. Özellikle çevre konusunda, küresel ısınma konusunda, iklim değişikliği konusunda çalışmalar yapan, projeler üreten tüm ülkelerin büyükelçileriyle, temsilcileriyle zaman zaman yayınlar yapıyoruz. Bugün de Dünya Su Günü ve su konusunda, su teknolojileri konusunda söylediğim gibi önemli ülkelerden, lider ülkelerden bir tanesi İsrail ve şimdi Ankara'ya gideceğiz. Ankara'da İsrail Büyükelçiliği Maslahat Güzarı IRIT LILLIAN bizi bekliyor. Bundan sonra İngilizce olarak devam edeceğim. Dear Ambassador, welcome to our program. How are you?
Very well. Happy International Water Day.
Yeah, felicitation. Especially, we wanted to welcome you in that very special day because Israel is an important, is a pioneer country in so-called maybe water technologies. It's a huge problem for all over the world. It's a crucial problem. Every country is looking for solutions. And Israel also has lots of technology development in that area. There are really interesting subjects. So maybe we can start like this. Your feelings, few words for World Water Day, dear Ambassador, and then we'll go on.
Well, we all know that a very large part of our world, of our universe, consists of water.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, very large segments of the population are suffering from lack of water, and I would say even more so with global changes and with the warming of our planet. We can envisage a much larger segment of the population suffering from the same scarcity. And in a way, when the first pioneers came to the land of Israel already more than 100 years ago, they found a very, very arid land. Everybody is saying it's the land of milk and honey, but unfortunately, both for milk and for honey, you need water. Yeah. And water was in a very, I mean, this is an arid country. About half of it is desert-like or semi-desert. We didn't have water. So in a way, necessity was the mother of invention, as from the first days of our statehood. And I think the first thing that our forefathers had in mind is to find some kind of a balance between the regions that have more water, this is mainly in the northern part of the country, and the ones that are in the south, very close to the desert, and trying to equilibrate this gap by a vision of a pipeline that would somehow connect these two parts, and this was actually the first step for desertification. Of course, later on came other solutions, and these solutions nowadays are needed more than ever. And if we want to start by something interesting for this very important day, International Day, I would say that the first innovator that had to do with water was our biblical father, Moses. It is also considered as a prophet by many Muslims around the world and by everyone else, the one who gave us the Bible. And he was the first innovator. When the sons of Israel came to him and said, Moses, we have no water, we need water. He used his stick, he tapped a rock, and all of a sudden came water, plenty of water. Unfortunately, this innovation worked only once in our history, in human history. And ever since there, we have to be innovative in order to consume water in a more clever manner. Efficient way, and, and to use it in a more logical manner.
Okay. Water used to be very important, but especially in those days, its importance is getting higher and higher, maybe more than ever. So in each conferences, summits, especially also in Glasgow, is the main subject. So there are some solutions, there are some researches, technologies, and we have here desertification. Desalination is a very interesting subject. We'll hear from you, dear Ambassador. Water treatment and recycling, purification of water. So what kind of technologies are implemented in Israel? Which one of those projects is already live? And what would you say? Maybe we can go one by one. That one, desalination, is really interesting matter. Can we really drink seawater? Is it possible to do this?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the most interesting thing is that Israel actually started applying desalination as a national project only at the beginning of the 21st century, or let's say the years 2000. And because before that, we kind of counted on, of course, rainfall and the very good water management, as I mentioned, this idea of transferring the water from north to south via a very wide pipeline, which is called our national carrier. But if we're speaking about desalination, it was always, not only that it was always up in the air, I would say that the first desalination method was invented in Israel. It is called the Chargé method of desalination. It was already invented in the 60s. But however, like your skepticism of can it really supply the need of drinking water to a country, this doubt was always in the air. And it's only in the year 2005 that the first desalination plant started operating. Today we're having 5 big desalination plants that are taking water from the sea and making it drinkable water. not only drinkable, in a very high quality as well. This water is used mainly for drinking and for household use. Unlike irrigation water that we take from other sources, we are going to speak about it in a short while. In Israel, the biggest desalination plants in the world are operating. And nowadays, we supply about 660 million cubic meter per year to our population only via desalination of seawater. And in a way, this is an endless resource, the seawater. And I believe that more and more plants of this kind are going to be built not only in Israel, but worldwide.
Is it an expensive process? And how is it now you're drinking water? How is the taste when you compare to, for example, to that water you're drinking now? What about the taste or the differences?
Absolutely no difference.
Really? Because I never tasted.
It's the same thing. And it's a very high quality water. Because as we mentioned before, the solution is not only for the quantity of water, but it's also for the quality of water, the purification of water. The plants are really state-of-the-art plants. They are equipped with all possible purification systems that the customer at the end of the faucet is drinking water of the same quality as other water coming from other natural resources.
And you talk about some cubic meters or something, but if we can talk for the people, how many people can drink and can have that water in Israel,
Millions.
Especially?
Millions.
Millions of people. Already you have it.
Not only in Israel. Not only in Israel. Also our neighboring countries, and we will speak it a little bit maybe later, but our neighboring countries are enjoying a very interesting cooperation with Israel, namely the Palestinian Authority and Jordan. They get a very nice quantity of water from Israel each and every year according to our political agreements. And a very large sum of this water, of their consumption, actually comes from the same desalination plants on the shores of the state of Israel.
And also, what about the costs? Is it a really expensive method, or it can be more, cheaper and usable for the next generations, for the future?
It is a bit more expensive, but at the end of the day, there is an equilibration, because as natural sources are getting lesser and lesser, both in their capacity and in their number. It's very difficult to find new fountains of water or underwater which is clean and ready for utilization. So on this end, it's true that it is a little bit more expensive, but it has equilibration with digging wells and stuff like that. The plant can work basically endlessly.
Okay, great. So maybe we can go with water treatment and recycling projects also. And not only for drinking water, you can use in agriculture and in the other areas also that water, the same water, dear Ambassador.
I think this is one of the most important sources that are being used in Israel nowadays. 93% of wastewater in Israel is used after being treated for irrigation. Actually, a bit more than 86% of irrigation in Israel is done with treated water. Wastewater that comes both from households and from industry.
What do you mean exactly when you say treated water? What is the coverage of this? What do you mean by that? The water used in the social areas for the people, and it's recycled and become again usable water. But what do you mean exactly? Yeah.
The water that comes out of our faucet when we take a shower, when we use it for the toilets. Yeah. If there is industry, as you know, all kinds of industry, industry are using a lot of water. And the water is basically wastewater. If you don't treat it and reuse it, It just goes
It
into the
goes to
sewage
garbage.
and it
It goes
disappears.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Israel, there are several plants to treat water, to filter them, to clean them, to get rid of all the dirt that is in it. And this water is used only for irrigation. And I would even be more exact and say not all kinds of irrigation can use this particular water. But as I said, almost more than 90% of the irrigation of the agricultural fields and the agricultural crops in Israel are being watered with treated water. Another source for treated water is not water that is coming from households, industry, etc., sewage, but rather water that is brackish water. It's not completely salty, but it is a bit saltish. And this water has to go through a different kind of treatment and later can serve both as drinking water and for irrigation.
Okay. So it's very good to hear those kind of projects, those kind of developments. So when we are talking about the purification of water, could we say that Israel is one of the leading country and researching and developing country?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what kind of future projects you have in your agenda? And where are you now exactly? And where do you go in the future?
Purification projects has to do with mainly with filters.
Yeah.
It is innovation in the field of filters. Many people know, and even here it is quite obvious, that you have to filter the water and add all kinds of chemicals for treatment in order to make brackish or untreated water into drinkable water, potable water. But in the Israeli innovators and the Israeli water ecosystem, our WATEC system as we like to call them, have gone also into the research of the field of filters. And by the way, one of the companies that we are going to present later here in Turkey is a company which is called New Filtration. New Filtration is created the devices that can filter water that are completely muddy water. Muddy water, be it from floods, be it even in disaster areas or in areas in which the water is not treated and it's not clean. And when it goes through these membranes, through these filters, what you get at the end of the device, after no time, really, within seconds, you get a glass of pure water that is drinkable, that is usable for washing, for household, for industry, for you name it.
For the people, in their daily life, for the households, are they using those kind of projects, those kind of equipment already? How is the economy? How is the market, especially for that term?
In Israel, as the quality of the water is basically good, and most of the filtration is done in situ, where the water is being treated before it goes into the pipes to the different cities, then the need is not as big as other countries, mostly developing countries, but not only, in which the treatment of the water is being done on a municipal level or a village level. And sometimes the quality of the water is not good enough. I mean, it's good enough for household use, but for drinking in the long run, it's not very healthy. So these kind of devices are working very, very well all over the world. If I can mention, for instance, Georgia, Turkey's neighbor, one of the regions in Georgia got one of these devices as a donation from the state of Israel, just for one school. That means that these devices can be big or small. And later, the whole region now is filled with these devices that are producing very large quantity of waters for the use of villages, for agricultural use.
Very nice. We are together with Chargé d'Affaires of Embassy of Israel in Ankara, Ambassador IRIT LILLIAN, in that very special day, World Water Day, and we're talking about the water, solutions for clean water and also technologies development. In my notes, I have Mashav subject, the use of Israel technologies in the third countries, especially in the developing countries. Could you talk about that project, Mr. Ambassador?
I'll be very, very happy to talk about this project. Just before coming here, I was one of the members of Mashav. Mashav is the international, it's the international agency for development of the government of Israel. It is part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it exists already. It has been operating for more than 70 years. When Israel was still a very, very young country, we already believed in shared responsibility. In the past 2 years, Mashav is really focusing on the UN SDGs for 2030s. It proposes a very, very large variety of subjects in which we share our knowledge with people all over the world, and either by training or by proposing technologies, both in agriculture. We are quite strong on this particular subject, which is highly related also to the use of water, but not only. It can be also education and health, and you name it. It is part of our shared responsibility. Of course, water is a very important subject in Mashav's activity. We have one training center of Mashav in Israel, in the small kibbutz of Shfaim, that is accepting hundreds, thousands of trainees each and every year, learning how to use water in a more efficient manner, either in agriculture, using all kinds of devices, such as dripping irrigation, such as water forecast use, and many, many other subjects, which are, in a way, the future of our planet, facing the challenges of global warming. And Mashav is a very important agency and a very important branch or hand of the Israeli government, who is really, this hand is very warmly extended to people all around the world in order to cooperate and have better results in this global neutral challenge.
When you are talking, we are watching also the video of Mashav, and I think there are almost more than 150 countries in the list. Which countries are that, and are you happy with the reactions, with the results of that projects, dear Ambassador?
We are very, very happy with the results of this project. By the way, there are more than 1,000 Mashav graduates here in Turkey. And many of them, we are speaking about 70 years, and we have more than 70 years of good relations.
70 years.
70 years.
Okay. So
70, yeah.
Great.
70 years of Mashav activity, and throughout these years we had lots of people from Turkey who came to share knowledge and to benefit from Mashav's activities. It's true that being a G20 country, now Turkey is not entitled for all the benefits of Mashav. Yeah. But it just so happened that during Corona time, when much of the activity was online, once again we've seen a very large number of Turkish people joining us, sharing their knowledge. But most of the people are coming from, not from countries like Turkey, but more from the developing countries. And the results are amazing. If you see a place, for instance, I will give the example of Ethiopia, where it is a tropical country whose export of fruits was very, very limited. And after 8 years of mutual activity together with Mashav, now it exports hundreds of tons of high quality avocado to sustain the population, to have better agriculture, more advanced technologies being used. This is a great pride for us.
Great. In that point, could you give some more details for the relations between Turkey and Israel in terms of environment, the environmental problems, climate change, and everything. So, what kind of projects we have, and what kind of relations? Where are we, especially in that special problem of the world?
Many people, I think, are aware of the fact that the political relations between our two countries do not really reflect the actual relations between the two countries.
Yeah.
There are many subjects in which there is cooperation in research and development, in the academia, in agriculture. As you know, for instance, diseases, livestock diseases, they know no borders. And if there is a disease that starts somewhere in the Middle East, comes to Israel, it can easily reach the livestock of Turkey. So the veterinarian authorities have to be all the time in touch. And if there is an innovative medicine for certain diseases in livestock, they are being shared in order really to prevent diseases from spreading in the larger region. We have a lot of cooperation in trade and economy, and part of the 8 billion mutual trade per year is of different commodities such as dripping irrigation, fertilizers, and the many other commodities that at the end of the day are for the benefit of our environment, of our mutual environment. We are not that far from each other. Beehives, the theory of bee breeding, these are subjects in which there is an ongoing cooperation between Israel and Turkey that is going on for many years, no matter how political relations looked at this particular time.
Dear Ambassador, especially the environment, it's a common problem for all of us. So it's something all over the politics. So it's the most important thing. Is there any cooperation for that special subject, desalination? Any know-how, sharing of know-how of Israel with the Turkish part?
Desalination is a very commercial is a very commercial project nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to say that some Turkish companies were the companies who actually built the plants in Israel.
Really? In terms of construction?
In terms of construction.
Yeah, great.
So that means that a lot of know-how is here, and it is being shared with Israel. And the system of a particular plant of desalination as a cooperative between the two countries, here in Turkey, as far as I know, does not exist. But we are launching now, I believe, a new phase in our relations. So it is for us to talk in 10 years' time and see whether such cooperation exists or not.
Okay, great. So it's a World Water Day. We are talking about the water, the projects and the technologies and all, but also food as a factor of global climate change. You also have some projects for food waste management, recycling, biogas also. We can go with those topics, Ambassador.
Well, I think that food is something that many people, we all just consume food and don't give much of a thought to what we like to call the cow in the room.
Yeah.
And the fact that at the end of the day, without changing many of our behaviors regarding food, we will not be able to face the global warming.
Exactly.
I mean, 8 to 10% of gas emissions are actually the result of waste, of food waste. Mm-hmm. We are speaking about really huge numbers. Almost 1,000 million tons of food is being just thrown to the garbage in our world each and every day. Mm-hmm. And it is a huge problem. It is a huge problem, but it can be prevented. It can be prevented by, I would say, 2 manners. One of them is better planning. Mm-hmm. Better planning of food usage. And the other one is some kind of reuse of food, of waste food. When we are speaking about planning, we're speaking about everything. We're speaking about mobility, how to transfer food in a more equal manner, how to plan the growth in such a way that at the end of the day we get fruits and vegetables of a very high quality, and the sorting of the fruits and vegetables is going to be done already in the seed level. Mm-hmm. And on that aspect, I can just very proudly say that we have hundreds of companies in the Israeli food tech, and we do use innovation and innovative technologies in order to prevent food waste. Now, we all know that as much as we try, we are all now, when we are speaking about the climate change goals, we all know that we are now either in the mitigation or adaptation phase. We are not yet to achieve the goals, or most of them. Mm-hmm. And therefore, even in this stage, we know that some of the things we would like to change, but they're not changed yet, such as food waste. So a company like Biogas is an Israeli company that is using food waste that can come from a household, but it can come from a wet market, it can come from a school, it can come from anywhere. Yeah. All the waste, all the garbage, wet garbage, is being dumped in a very big container, and what you get at the end of the day is gas, is cooking gas. This is a very good example of reuse of food, which we are going also to demonstrate next week here in Ankara. And this is just one example. Now, the other example is, of course, changing behavior of eating. As I said, I like to call it really the cow in the room, but we all know that if we don't change our eating habits, we will not be able to achieve the SDGs. It's going to be impossible, because even raising livestock is taking huge amount of land, a huge amount of water. 83% of the agricultural fields all over the world is dedicated to feed animals. I'm not even talking about the fact that 60 billion animals are being killed each and every year only to provide 18% of the calorie need of a person. And I haven't even started counting the fish, because fish are counted in tons and not by individuals. Yeah. So this is a waste, and this is a feature that should be changed. And again, once again, technology is an answer. In Israel nowadays, we have about 700 food tech companies that are dealing with all kinds of protein substitutes. Protein substitutes can come from many sources. It can come from vegetal sources, using things that we all sometimes have in our daily diet, such as lentils, chickpeas. These are easy ones. I mean, and the daily consumption of it is rather common all around the world. Yeah. But it needs agriculture, and it needs water. But some of the other inventions or food tech novelties are actually the use of one cell, just one cell of a cow, which is nothing. I mean, it can be taken in no time for each and every cow, and create either a 3D printed meat products. It's artificial meat, lab produced meat, or huge quantities of a product that is imitating meat, milk, eggs. It can be used exactly the same way, and it causes no harm to the animals. And at the same time, people who eat it says it's very, very tasty, and you can hardly feel the difference.
Dear Ambassador, we are watching the video meanwhile, so it's really interesting. Could you please underline it again? 3D technology for food. You
Absolutely.
producing food with 3D printing technology. And this
Yes,
is the
this is
video.
one. Yeah, you can see it on the video. This
Yeah.
is one of the technologies that we are using, is the 3D printing of meat. But there are many other technologies, like the one that you see right now is the 3D printing, but there are other technologies in which this mass that you can see now is being cooked to perfection, in a way that people who eat it, when it reaches their plate, they cannot tell the difference. I brought 2 hamburgers of this kind
Really?
to one of the people here in the embassy, a meat eater, who said, I could not tell the difference.
Those are really hopeful projects for the future of the human being, for the world. But when do you think they can be efficient and they can be open to daily use of anybody, of every people, every population on the world?
I think that even here...
Those are the first steps, of course, but it looks very interesting, it looks very nice and tasteful maybe. But how do you see the future of those kind of projects, technologies?
You can find many of these products already in supermarkets all around the world.
Yeah.
You can find them even here. You can find some of these products, not all of them. But as I said, it is also a matter of changing behavior. It's not only about the accessibility to these products. These products are accessible. They're not very cheap, though.
Maybe the conception can...
The conception.
The conception.
The conception. People would say, I mean, I'm used to my, I don't know, to my kebab, and I'm not ready to taste something that is so artificial. I don't know how it's going to affect my body, etc., etc. But basically, we're speaking about products that are very, very, very similar.
Okay. So finally, you already mentioned you have a really important conference or summit next week in Ankara, ECOS Climate Summit, with the participation of Israeli high-tech companies having expertise in agriculture, agrotech, food tech, and water tech. Could you a little bit talk about that summit, dear Ambassador?
This summit is organized here in Ankara, but it's a national and also an international summit. It is not organized by us, but it is organized by the relevant ministries, the municipality of Ankara.
Yeah.
Israel is going to have a booth in this summit, in the exhibition of the different technologies and the different manners to confront the challenges of global warming and of climate change. And we are going to present 3 companies in the Israeli booth dealing with 3 different subjects. Nuf, which I already mentioned, is dealing with water purification.
Great.
Home Biogas is the company that is using waste and wet waste from homes to produce gas. And High Hopes is one of the most interesting companies. It is actually a technology that is catching CO2 from the atmosphere and converting it and really reducing the carbon emission in the atmosphere.
How? Which system?
It is for all of us to see. I mean,
it's a technology, it's a new development.
It is a very, very, very cutting-edge technology.
Great.
And the High Hopes is a startup from Israel of people who had this brilliant idea just to catch the CO2 directly from the atmosphere and reduce the amount of gas, not only by changing habits on the ground, but rather doing it high up in the air.
Lots of new development, new technologies, and it was a really interesting program together with you. And we'd like to hear from High Hopes especially after next week, and because this is something really important. Rather than the natural methods, they are using some kind of technology and reducing the carbon. So it's really interesting. The world needs those kind of developments, those kind of steps. So it's really important also. It was lovely to be together with you, dear Ambassador. Do you have any words to finalize the program?
I think the most important thing is that, first of all, to thank you very much for hosting me in your show, and to have the opportunity to speak a little bit about Israel and its commitment to making our world a better world. I think that if there is one message that I would like to share with your audience, is really the message of global responsibility. We are all responsible for the future of our planet, and we are all responsible for the future of our children. And sometimes it takes very little to change our personal behavior, to recycle, to look a little bit more on what we buy, how we use it, and the change is going to be made by many people contributing just their little token in this global effort.
Okay, thank you so much for those lovely words and for that contribution, dear Ambassador. Chargé d'Affaires, Embassy of Israel in Ankara. Maybe next time we'll be together in our studio. We hope so. So see you soon, let's say.
See you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Evet. Böylelikle İsrail'in özellikle su konusu başta olmak üzere son teknolojilerle çevre konusunda yaptıkları çevre sorunuyla başa çıkmak için tüm dünyanın yapmaya çalıştığı gibi öne çıkan teknolojilerini ve çözüm önerilerini ve uygulamalarını görmüş olduk. Özellikle deniz suyunun içme suyuna çevrilmesi konusundaki gelinen nokta son derece çarpıcı. Sayın Büyükelçi de altını çizdi. Yani normal içtiğimiz sudan hiçbir farkı yok ve günlük hayatta da gayet kullanılabiliyor. Tabii daha pahalı ve hani yaygın olması için belki zaman var ama su konusunda tabii sıkıntı yaşayan ülkelerden, bölgelerden biri olduğu için İsrail bunu ciddi şekilde geliştirmişler. Yine önümüzdeki hafta ATO'nun düzenlediği iklim fuarı var. Burada da yine İsrail firmaları katılacak ve adı High Hopes olan firma yeni bir startup projesi. Karbondioksiti kendi metotlarıyla azaltıyorlar, atmosferdeki böyle bir sunum yapacaklar. Onu da merakla bekliyoruz. Bu arada yine alternatif protein anlamında 3 boyutlu yazıcılarla ürünlerin yazıcıya girmesi ve ortaya bir hani suni diyebileceğimiz işte et ve buna benzer protein ürünlerinin çıkması da yine biraz fütüristik bir program oldu. Sayın Büyükelçi IRIT LILLIAN'la beraber son derece de faydalı oldu. Tüm dünya ülkeleri bu konuyla uğraşıyorlar. Bu konunun üzerine gitmeye çalışıyorlar. Çevre sorunu tüm politikaların, tüm ikili ilişkilerin, diplomatik ilişkilerin üzerinde bir ilişkin. Dünyanın ortak sorunu. Dolayısıyla biz de tüm büyükelçilikler aracılığıyla tüm ülkelere ve bu konuda çalışma yapan herkese, sivil topluma, yerel yönetimlere, kamu yönetimlerine ve dünyanın her yerinde çevre üzerine kafa yoran herkese söz veriyoruz. Söz vermeye devam edeceğiz. Bu çerçevede İsrail Büyükelçiliği ekibine, oradaki arkadaşlarımıza da programı hazırlarkenki işbirlikleri ve birlikte çalışmamızdan dolayı teşekkür ederim. Evet, bugünlük bizden bu kadar. Programımızın sonuna geldik. Dünya Su Günü yeniden kutlu olsun. Su konusunda özel çalışmaları olan bir ülkenin maslahat güzarını dinledik ve IRIT LILLIAN bize su projeleri, İsrail'deki su projeleri, temizleme, tarımda kullanma, sulamada kullanma, geri dönüşüm ve özellikle içme suyu olarak deniz suyunun kullanılması konularını da ayrıntılı olarak anlattı. Türkiye için de son derece önemli. Türkiye'de de tabii çok ciddi çalışmalar yapılıyor. Dünya Su Günü dolayısıyla bugün Deniz Şafak'ın 3 tane konuğu var aynı anda. Güzel bir program olacak. Küresel su politikaları ve Türkiye konuşulacak. Suyu sağlıklı ve güvenli hale getirmek mi önemli, korumak mı önemli, neler yapılmalı ki biz de az önce aynı şeyleri konuştuk. Profesör Doktor Murat Topbaş, Karadeniz Teknik Üniversitesi'nden. Yine Doktor İlhan Sasen olacak, Bolu Abant İzzet Baysal Üniversitesi'nden. Ve yine Seyfi Kılıç, Muğla Sıtkı Koçman Üniversitesi'nden 3 hocamızla birlikte Deniz Şafak Dünya Su Günü ve bu çerçevede su politikalarını konuşuyor olacak. O programda saat 14'te sizlerle birlikte. Bizden bugünlük bu kadar. Çevre Günlüğü'nden bu özel röportajda noktalamış olduk. Yarın aynı saatte görüşmek üzere. Hoşça kalın diyelim.